This program is brought to you by Emory University.
There were many powerful moments during the Great Depression, but one of the most powerful, I believe, was the Missouri Sharecroppers Strike of 1939. And to begin to understand what makes this so powerful is that one of the things that speaks to me, really speaks to me, is when the seemingly powerless, in fact, exert their incredible power, find their power to, in fact, create change. And with the Missouri Sharecroppers Strike, what happened is, remember, this is the Great Depression. The overall unemployment rate is about 25%. But for the agricultural workers, it was just grinding. In fact, the Great Depression had hit the agricultural sector back in the 1920s, not even in the 1930s. And you had these sharecroppers. And sharecropping was just a step above slavery when you think about it. They didn't own anything except their labor. They didn't own the houses, the shacks that they lived in. They didn't own the mules. They didn't own the land. They worked on these big plantations. And what was happening during the Great Depression is you get these sharecroppers and they're out there and they're picking cotton, 75 cents a day, working, as they said, from caint to caint. From the moment when you can't see the sun to when you can't see the sun again. 75 cents a day. Well, the federal government, with the Agricultural Adjustment Act, realizes that the agricultural sector is in trouble. And part of the problem is they're producing too much product. And so it keeps driving down the price. And so the feds are like, okay, we're going to pay you not to grow. We're going to pay you not to grow this land. And the plantation owners are like, sweet, okay. And the feds were like, no, not that sweet. We're going to give you a nice big check to not grow every third acre that you have. And they're like, sweet. But you're supposed to give a part of this check to the sharecroppers, because they're going to be making less money because you're not growing a third. And they went, sure, you can trust us. And so the feds send these big checks in, and the plantation owners, the planters, start kicking the sharecroppers off the land. Now, one of those sharecroppers was a man named Reverend Owen Whitfield. And Reverend Whitfield, he had been working from caint to caint to caint, just to give you some sense of how oppressive this system was. He had been working from just at the end of the planting season, when everything's harvested, you go to the planter to get your pay. And they deduct everything that they've paid you from here, for this is what your house costs, this is what your food costs. He's like, okay. He goes to get his check because he's got 12 kids. The plantation owner hands him an old, worn, moth-eaten suit as his pay for a whole season's worth of work. This steals this man, angers him. First, he's just, where he's crying. And then he gets mad. And then he begins to organize. And part of his organization is through the Southern Tenant Farmers Unit. And as he's organizing, and as these plantation owners are getting their parity checks and kicking the sharecroppers off the land, he's like, okay. So they start organizing via the union, and they start organizing in the churches, because he was Reverend Owen Whitfield. And as they're organizing in the churches, and remember, this is late 1938, they get kicked off the land. Over 1,000 sharecroppers in the Boot Hill of Missouri. So the plantation owners are holding on to all of the money. Greed is not good. What they expected was that these sharecroppers, these poor, starving people, would just dissipate, would just go hide their shame, hide their starvation, hide their hunger, hide their poverty. Instead, Owen Whitfield was like, oh no, we're going to let you see what greed did to us. We're going to let you see the pain. We're going to let you see our babies starving after we have worked all year long. And so in January 1939, the sharecroppers lined up along Highway 61 and Highway 60. Imagine this. And not only did they line up, African Americans and white sharecroppers lined up. This is 1939 in the Boot Heel. This is where lynchings have occurred. As they're lined up pitching their old tents and their hovels, and they're out there with their starving babies as the winds are howling down in the wintertime, and all of a sudden the news cameras are coming. And the planters are like, why are you embarrassing us like this? The state of Missouri, this is embarrassing. They're like, no, this is real. This is what your greed does. And like, well, you need to leave. You need to, no, where are we going to go? I mean, it was resolve. It was instilled in them. That kind of, I shall not be moved. You've got to love it. And as they're going, I shall not be moved, and the intimidation is starting. They have guys riding by who are threatening to shoot them. Finally, the feds are looking at this going, oh, this is beyond whacked. This is so beyond unacceptable. And so the feds are like, okay, we'll find a place to put you. And before that, the Missouri's like, no, before the feds can get here, we'll handle this. And so what the Missouri did, the governor called in the health department to say, this would be a health problem. Yes, this is not a sanitary place to live. We cannot have these people here. And so then the state of Missouri came in with its trucks and its cars, piled up these families, and to try to stop the cameras from rolling, seeing this pain and agony in the howls of the winter, and move them basically to swampland. Because what, that was more healthy? But no, because it wasn't on the road where they could not be seen. Again, they refused to take it. They stayed organized, they stayed mobilized, and they began to put pressure, additional pressure on the government. And what you also see then happening is that you have faculty members and students from the historically black college and Lincoln University in Jefferson City mobilizing, giving up their prom money, their dance money, organizing and providing clothing, providing food, and then going to the federal government demanding better conditions. The feds try to come back with a new Agricultural Adjustment Act. All that did is it made the sharecroppers even more greedy, and they kicked more folks off the land. But the protests began to mount, and the federal government came in and created housing. And when you hear the sharecroppers talk about it, the families of these sharecroppers are going, this was the first time that we had housing that had electricity, that had plumbing. All of a sudden, was like, this is hope. This is a new day. This is wonderful. And from that, they learned the power of hope. They learned that they could transform their own lives by staying organized and by fighting against oppression. And as one of the men said, it shows that common people can do really uncommon things.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.